know we're saying, we always say in the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary. And you're gonna have to keep on.
Hey everyone, my name is Andre Walton. I'm the Southeast Regional Organizer for our Wisconsin Revolution, and welcome to the Revolution. On today's episode, we have a very special guest, Dr. Gillian Battino, candidate for the U.S. Senate. How you doing today, Jill?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. You know, the weather is finally warming, and the Bucks are winning, so that just makes me happy. But really glad that you've got a chance to take our request and take on this interview. So let's get right into it. So I recently got a chance to learn a little bit more about your candidacy and your background. One of the things that stood out to me that you've been a doctor for nearly over 20 years. Can you tell us a little bit about your background in medicine?
Yeah, so it really starts when I was a kid. So when I was about 2 years old, my dad died at home. He was 29, and he had rheumatic heart disease, which is something that happens sometimes after an untreated strep infection, like strep throat or something you might get when you're a kid. So back when he was a kid, he was fairly poor and had poor healthcare access, and so that was the outcome of that, is that I lost my dad when I was really little. My mom was 25, my sister was 3, and I was about to turn 2, and definitely shaped my life in a lot of ways. But sort of on the other hand of that, we had, my mom got remarried, and my brother was born when I was 9. And he was a teeny tiny preemie. He was 2 pounds, 2 ounces back in 1979, where, babies that size did not survive commonly anyway. And he had wonderful health care. He was at Johns Hopkins University, and he was in the NICU. He had a team of specialists. He had everything that he needed to not just survive, but to thrive. And so he's 41 years old now, and he's doing as well as he can do. He has some special needs and disabilities, but he lives in Wausau. I'm his guardian with my sister, Julie, and he works, and he's a happy guy. He's actually contributing to this campaign. And, just seeing that obvious difference between what happens when you have healthcare and what happens when you don't have healthcare made me decide at a really young age that I wanted to be a doctor. So at first I wanted to be a pediatric neurosurgeon, but I came to my senses and found my place in radiology. I specialize in breast cancer detection, and I'm very passionate about healthcare disparity. So I've spent a lot of my time not just making sure that I take care of women in relatively underserviced rural areas like central Wisconsin, but also I spend a lot of time working in global health and developing radiology services globally in lower and middle income countries. So it's kind of defined who I am and how I see the world, I think, just starting out with those experiences.
That's amazing. I have a lot of questions about healthcare, so I'm glad you're bringing that up. And it would be extra good to ask a doctor about healthcare, because a lot of people, they don't really understand the difference between like a universal healthcare system and our current healthcare system. So we'll definitely get into that. So I guess the obvious question is, what brought you to want to run for the Senate?
Well, really, sort of the same thing. I just really appreciate what accessibility, not just to healthcare, but accessibility to outstanding education, to an equal educational opportunity, to living in a safe environment, to climate change crisis issues, where there are definitely parts of our population here in Wisconsin that are very negatively impacted by our climate change issues, and will be very positively impacted by climate change solutions. The same thing with workers' rights, the same thing with really everything that we're going to talk about and every issue that's facing our country right now. And I mean in your face, facing our country right now. These are emergencies. And so, there's this thing that we say in medicine, answer the code. When the code rings, you go, there's an alarm, somebody needs your help. And I got to this place in my life where I realized that all of the skills and the virtues that I embrace and that I've gained over the years really position me, I think, uniquely to serve the people of Wisconsin with the type of dignity and respect and kindness and, without judgment. And when I say that, I mean every single person in Wisconsin, no matter how they voted. I think we have to meet people where they are and talk to them about the things that matter to them and find our common ground in order to move this forward. I really believe that even with having very progressive values and very progressive goals, that we can find unity and make sustainable progress that is fair and just for us all.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think when you focus on the core issues, the working class values, people can see past the partisan divides. So yeah, definitely appreciate that. So let's get into some policy questions. So OWR is not shy about our progressive stances. We definitely advocate for Medicare for all. And in the United States, we're one of the only industrialized countries that do not have a universal healthcare system. And as a result, thousands of people go bankrupt each year, and thousands of people die from lack or having no insurance at all. What is your stance on Medicare for all? And if you were to be elected, what type of healthcare system would you push for, and how would you advocate for it? I know that was like 3 questions, but hopefully you can answer them.
So I feel strongly that the best solution is Medicare for all. And even, more strongly than that a single payer Medicare for all is the best solution. This is not a light switch. This is a process. It has to be, picked apart and approached in a reasonable, doable way. Because if you just try to change from where we are, which is a very, a much improved place than where we were 10 years ago, the Affordable Care Act did do a lot of good for our country and for our patients. I see patients who tell me straight out, I did not have health care before Obamacare, and now they have it. But I also see patients every day who are underinsured and uninsured. And so they have very high premiums, they have catastrophic sort of coverage, and their deductibles are $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 before they kick in. And their incomes are, it's not feasible for them to pay that kind of premium and that kind of deductible in order to receive their health care. So they're essentially, they don't have usable health care. So, we know this doesn't work. We also know that when you have a private system and a public system, there's sort of this ongoing battle between those two systems, sort of the haves and have-nots. And the private system and all of the money and the lobbying and the insurance companies and other wealthy corporations and constituents are involved in that, tend to work to undermine the strength of the public system, and not too dissimilar than compared to the VA system. Not too long ago, our VA system was not as strong as it is today. I've seen this in action in Guyana and Nicaragua, where if you want a CT scan, you have to pay out of pocket to go. This was true in Guyana before I worked there, where you had to pay out of pocket to go to the private system. And basically they said, oh, we have healthcare for everyone because we have, a public healthcare system, but it doesn't cover this, it doesn't cover that, it doesn't cover, so many things. So still the healthcare is not adequate. So, obviously that transition has to be an intentional, concerted effort. and it needs to be done as quickly as it can be done, but also with a lot of thought to the survivability of hospital systems across our country, which have been built on the current economic model of private insurers. And currently we kind of use our private insurances to subsidize other care within our hospital systems, and this would be a complete remodeling of that. There's a really wonderful group of physicians for universal healthcare system, and they have a policy that they've designed. It's a proposal basically, and it addresses a lot of these how do we get there kind of things. There's just a lot of components that need to be considered. Medical education, and not just for physicians, but for nurses, for allied support, for all of the components that make up a healthcare system. It needs to be subsidized and affordable in order to get more people there, in order to have proper representation of our patient population, which we currently do not at all have. If you looked at a picture of a medical school class, you would see that we have some work to do there. Obviously, I'm sure you're aware of that. So there's just a lot of components that need to come together, but ultimately Medicare for all, and with the addition of dental and vision, and certainly I'm very interested in the hearing part, because my hearing aids are $7,000. If I didn't have them, I wouldn't be able to function at work, and I know people who have to pay out of pocket for that, and it's not feasible for them. So that elder care, hospice care, all of these things, and there are wonderful models to learn from, like in Canada, and we can get there. And there's also some lessons to be learned. But if we don't prioritize it and we don't fight for it, we're not going to get it. And I don't think it's helpful to aim below that bar. I think if you aim below that bar, you'll never get there. If you aim for that, then you'll get closer and closer and closer. And in the short term, I think we can get to Medicare for all of the people who live in this country.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that you've taken that position, strong position on Medicare for all. There's just so much waste in our healthcare system, and people fail to realize, it's. I don't know if you've seen it, but there was a Washington Post video. I think it was the Washington Post, but there was like people from overseas countries reacting to the American healthcare system. And one guy was all like, that's like if I pay for Spotify Premium and then to access my music, I have to pay a deductible. It just doesn't make sense. And that's kind of sums up the American healthcare system. But yeah, glad to see that you have that stance. So let's get into another topic. So Wisconsin is one of the few states in the Midwest that has yet to legalize marijuana. And the Democratic Party has signaled that they want to legalize marijuana. However, to this point, there has been little to no action to pass it on a federal level. So 2 questions for you. Do you support the full legalization of marijuana? And do you think communities that have been most affected by the drug war should benefit the most from marijuana revenues as far as taxes?
So I do support the full legalization of marijuana. I think that this is, on so many levels, such a basic, simple solution to addressing, for example, incarceration of young African-American men as a result of the drug war. And in my opinion, an intentional design to disenfranchise a voting population. I think that it's an effort to perpetuate poverty in our African American communities and our BIPOC communities, and I think we absolutely need to admit that, identify it, and address it directly. And part of this, I'm sure you've listened to the new Jim Crow, Michelle Anderson's book. And there's so much, it's so packed with brilliant information. And so much of what she's saying in there is very commonsensical, and yet it was written 10 years ago, pre-Obama, and we're still having many of these same problems. So I think that the legalization of marijuana is a basic primary step in addressing the war on drugs. I also believe that, medicinal marijuana has a lot of positive properties for our population in general, and that we can't even properly investigate it because we don't have a collaborative, multi-state approach to that. And so it limits our ability to properly research and safely, distribute and provide for people who require that, or who would at least tremendously benefit from it. So I'm fully for the legalization of marijuana. In terms of basically reparations for communities who have been negatively impacted by this, I mean, absolutely, that discussion has to be had. On a lot of levels, it needs to be, I think, addressed. I think that definitely one way to address it is to look at the profits and, from taxation, revenue to business opportunities, entrepreneurship, small business loans, all of the creative outside the box thinking that could be done to support entrepreneurship for communities who have been negatively impacted. I think that's a really wonderful discussion that you seem to be alluding to. But there's more to it than that. I mean, we also need to look at our educational systems, be absolutely certain that our zip codes are not controlling the quality of education. Currently, I have a big problem with the way that funding is distributed for educational institutions. And specifically, if you look at the district funding for a school, it looks like about 45% of it comes from the state and about 45% of it comes from the district, and then about 5% of it, I can't remember the third place. But my point is that you cannot increase property taxes within a district to improve the school district if the area is poor. It just isn't going to have a proper effect. So why we are over and over again proposing that as a viable solution to addressing suboptimal public schools is, again, beyond me. So I think these things are all interrelated, and that really we need to pull out a lens for justice in the discussion of each of these topics, whether we're talking about the legalization of marijuana or the war on drugs or healthcare or climate change. All of these things, we really need to be honest and true about what the problem is and where it's coming from, and try to adjust it with that lens.
I definitely agree. And I think one of the things that you brought up that I liked is like investing in education, because as a student, I grew up in Milwaukee public schools, and I seen many like good teachers cut just because of like budget cuts. And I also seen like pre-prep or pre-college prep programs cut, which actually helped me get to college. And those things really affect how things go forward in the community. So I think that's a really good point that you made right there. Let's get into climate change, which you kind of hinted at a little bit earlier. Experts have warned us that we have almost less than 12 years to drastically change our ways to address climate change. And there has been little to no action to transition to renewable energy sources. What would you do to take action against climate change as a senator?
So first of all, we have to stop pretending that this isn't a thing. That conversation needs to stop. So one of the things that I really am excited about is the concept of not just being a scientist, which I consider myself to be. I do participate in research, and I'm a STEM educated person. So I do think that we need to bring scientists to the Senate. And I think we need to bring physicians to the Senate, people who understand how to translate the effects of climate change to our population and how it affects our population, to actually bring that home, because sometimes the message is lost and people can turn their backs on that. But if we look at, for example, the fact that a large percentage of our population lives near coal burning plants, and the majority of those, again, are Black and brown populations, and the result of that is asthma, dirty water, dirty air, dirty everything. People are not able to live in a healthy manner because of other issues. I think that the solutions for climate change become more conspicuous and urgent as part of the bigger picture. So first of all, we have to insist that that it is a recognized problem. And then we have to look at the timeline. 30 years is way too long, as you just indicated. It is not a 30-year plan. That's not gonna cut it, and we're gonna have a terrible problem. We're definitely going to be looking for Earth number 2, and that's just not. It's just not. I mean, realistic. This is our planet. There's no reason that we shouldn't be focusing on healing this planet. The planet has a wonderful capacity to heal if we allow it. So we need to, really focus on the science and the innovation and the technology and how to support this. So I definitely believe in creating incentives, and, be they federal programming for tax cuts or programming to help fund different types of approaches to climate change. I think we need to look at those. And the things that excite me the most. So I've been excited about climate. I'm a bio major. I did fish biology. I mean, I'm really kind of the tree hugger genre here. And I've always been really excited about renewable energy. And so we have a wind turbine at my house, a 15 kilowatt wind turbine. I have solar and also geothermal. And we've had this for 10 years. It does work, but we need to invest in it. We need to make it better, more efficient, more affordable. We need to make sure that we're producing this in our own country and that we're training a workforce to support it. Right now, if I have a problem with my wind turbine, it takes me a lot of time to get someone to service it because there's just not enough trained support for that. So obviously, this is a multifaceted approach, but we need to work on our technology development, our innovation, our workforce, and then also distribution and availability. In about a week or a week and a half or something, I'm going to visit a biomass farm here in Wisconsin, where I'm sure you're familiar with this, but you basically, it's a dairy farm, and they harvest the methane that is coming off of the manure. It's a natural gas. They clean the gas, and then that can be used as a natural gas. Sometimes they use it to create steam and turbine and electricity generated from that. In Wisconsin, we have almost 40 of these farms. We can quintuple that number, or at least quadruple that number of farms, so that we are creating financial and economic stability for our farmers at the same time that we're addressing the methane release from our dairy farms. So there are solutions that are win-win for everybody, and we know what they are. We just need to agree to focus on it and to get it done. So to me, climate change is an emergency of sorts. I mean, it definitely needs to be addressed now, but it's also a tremendous opportunity for us to take better care of our people, better care of our workers, provide more educational opportunities, more support for our educational systems because of improved taxation and property value and all of these things. It's an investment in our people. That's never a waste. An investment in our planet and an investment of our people. It will feed our economy. So I think it's a win-win situation if we let it be that, and if we take advantage of it. So as a senator, I will absolutely fight for now changes that embrace and support climate change solutions that will result in job growth for our people and economic stability.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I think we need to take action on it. And as somebody who will probably see the direct effects of climate change, is very important. So another question that has to do with what affects my generation and other generations as well is student debt. And so the average student debt in America is about $32,000. I myself have $38,000 in student debt. And Joe Biden has signaled that he would be willing to cancel up to $50,000 in student debt. What is your stance on student debt cancellation?
So I also had student debt after medical school, $100,000.
Ouch.
And it was scary. And while I was doing my residency and making, I think after taxes, it was terrible. I don't even want to say it was so little money, but we couldn't afford to start paying off our student debt until we finished. I finished paying off my student loans when I was about 40. I was already, working on saving for my children's school, and I wasn't done paying for my own. I have 6 kids. I don't know if you knew that.
No, now.
And they they range in age from 15 to 25. My oldest is a 4th-year medical student in Chicago at Rush, and she found a wonderful opportunity, but albeit way too competitive, to find a way to serve her community by doing a health corps scholarship where she will work for 4 years in an underserved area in exchange for her medical school debt to be covered by the federal government. I think there are a lot of really smart ways to be sure that everyone who wants to be in education after their high school graduation can do that. And I don't think that it should be paid for. I don't think that we should be paying for it. Our students should not be paying for it. In other words, I don't think that, not only do I believe that your student debt should be canceled, but I believe that there should be no more student debt, that anyone who wants to go to college should be able to do that for free. And that, like many other governments across the world, that we can find ways to make this viable and good for our economy, whether that's asking people to do what my daughter's doing, where she's going to pay back with her work, or asking people to work while they're in college, or doing all the things. I'm sure you worked while you were in college. I worked while I was in medical school. And some people are not going to be able to do any of that because they're already taking care of their families, and they're already working a job so that they can pay their own rent. I think we need to meet people where they are and make sure that education is accessible and paid for, and that we can do that. I do believe that we can do that if we properly talk about taxation in our country, so that the wealthiest people in this country are paying their fair share. I don't think that how we pay for education for our students through college will be a question. So basically, yes, I would cancel student debt. And yes, I believe that every student from this time forward should have the opportunity to find a program that works for them, whatever that might be. I don't know. There are a lot of smart ideas out there, so that they are not strapped and not able to make a choice to go to college. I think that should be a no-brainer for our economy.
Exactly. And one of the issues with student debt is that, it's seen as like this kind of, hey, you just got to pay it back and, get over it. Well, it's a huge like hamper on the economy. We're not going to invest in trying to buy a house or a car. We're going to be like, maybe we'll push it off or wait until this time, or wait till I get my tax money. And it's just a stress on the economy. So lifting that student debt would be a huge stimulus right there. I mean, I think I seen a report that said because right now they're freezing all student debt payments. They said the average student debt holder has like saved up over $2,000. Like that's pretty amazing. Like considering everything that's going on with this pandemic. So yeah, it's a huge issue. So my last question for you is about money in politics. So I believe the reason why we get little to no action on the most pressing issues facing our society is due to money in politics. I really do think the reason why we don't have action on healthcare, climate change, legalization of marijuana, and all these issues that we truly care about is because there's so much money going into the political system, from wealthy donors to dark money to lobbyists. And I think it's a real issue that's really, really just kind of destroying our fabric of our democracy and what's popular in our system. My question for you is, do you support campaign finance reform? If so, what do you think needs to be done to fix our campaign finance system as it currently is?
So, this is very bothersome to me, and I actually didn't know that much about it until I started, looking into running and figuring out how people fund their campaigns and how they get the word out and all of this. And I mean, it permeates every level of government. It's starting at the very base, which is keeping people who are representatives of our communities from running. So you basically have to be privileged. And I would, I get it. I'm privileged. I am highly compensated. I'm a physician, and not to say that I didn't grow up in a situation where where we had very rough times and couldn't heat the house, but now in my life I'm very comfortable. It's not appropriate or fair or really correct that anybody who wants to run for office cannot do so because of the cost. So, right now, if we look at people who are running for office, they have family wealth that's out of this world. I mean, just insane amounts of money. Somebody commented to me that the Senate lease was not for sale, but it was for lease. Or the Senate seat was not for sale, but it is for lease. That's inherently wrong. We will never, if you look at the average wealth of people who are representing their country, it has nowhere near the reflection of the people that they're representing. And that's exactly the problem. And so that starts with our campaigns and people who are running for office. It also, if you look at people who are actually in office, the pay is not really competitive with other pay. So they have to make sacrifices to their families and their wellness just to represent their people. And then they've got to fight the money once they get there. So I alluded to it earlier. The problem with Medicare for all and having a private option is that there is money in the private sector that will continue to undermine and weaken the strength of the public system. And I think that gun reform is a really, really important place to have that discussion. I don't think that I almost never talk to somebody who is completely against gun reform. Almost in Wisconsin, we've got guns. We have a lot of guns per capita compared to other states. And there's a lot of hunting in our state, and there are a lot of reason that people, farming and that sort of thing, that people have guns, that they need their guns. And there are other people who like to shoot guns. I don't have a problem with a responsible citizen's right to own a gun, but to not make sure that our casinos and our establishments of entertainment and our schools and our streets are safe by implementing, basic common sense gun laws is just obscene to me. It's disturbing. And that is coming from money. That's all it is. It's just money. So elected officials are owned by their donors. And that's, honestly, one thing that I can promise you about me is that I will never, ever take money from someone who is going to try to control what I vote, the way I vote. The way I vote will be determined by the people that I represent, by the people of Wisconsin, not by a single donor, not by a PAC, never, because that is the whole point. The whole point of being here today talking with you, and the whole point of a representative in this country as a republic, is to stand for the people that make up the republic, the constituents of this place. And that is not happening because of money. So yes, the money has to go. We have to address it. And if we can't say that, we can't do it. I don't know exactly how to do it. That's going to take a lot of smart people and a lot of, policy design and discussions and behind the scenes work. But if we can't say what we want to do, again, if we can't say Medicare for all, if we can't say that we have to get rid of for-profit prisons and criminal justice reform, if we can't say those things, we're not going to get anywhere. So this is another example of that. Yes, there has to be, money needs to be removed from politics, or if not removed, certainly controlled in a way that makes it a fair playing ground and where we can actually represent our constituents.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people don't really understand how important this issue is. And a lot of people say, Congress sucks, or, all politicians are liars, or X, Y, and Z, but they don't really understand that the underlying thing that's really poisoning our politics is the money in politics and campaign finance issue. So I'm glad you're taking a strong stance on it. And yeah, I don't expect you to have all the answers, but just having a stance on it means that you would look for the answer in the eventual future. But I think that's amazing answer what you gave. Oh, real quick question. You can give a yes or no on this one. Do you support $15 minimum wage?
$15 minimum wage?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
For a second there, I thought you said 50. I'm like,
maybe one day, not yet, but yeah, those were all my questions. I loved all the answers that you gave. I thought they were very thorough and thought out. Do you have anything that we didn't ask that you would like to touch on?
Well, no, except that I would like to say, just to throw out there, that I really believe that the best kind of politics and the campaign that is going to win this race and win for Wisconsin is one that is inspiring and empowering, and uniting. And I'm very, very excited because the team of people that we have jumping on this campaign are energetic, representative of our country and the people who make it up. So we have LGBTQ plus, we have, BIPOC community, we have, all over the place. We are seeking unity and representation in an effort, and also, disability is an issue. Obviously, for me, is very important. So I want to model what I want to see. And I hope that we do that as a campaign. That is what we're fighting for. People are crazy. They're working around the clock. We've got people on both sides of the country and all across the country, and lots of volunteers. So I expect you'll be seeing a lot more from us. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to talk with you.
Yeah, me too. Where can people find your campaign if they want to get involved or donate to you?
So it is Battino for Senate. We have a great Twitter account, lots of fun and strong opinions on there, Battino for Senate. And I think it's a number 4, so at Battino for Senate. And then there's a Facebook page of a similar name, Dr. Gillian Battino for Senate, I think. And you can also jump on the website, has a contact us button, and the new website will as well. And we respond, so you'll hear back from us. So
most definitely. And thank you again for doing this interview. We really appreciate it. Everybody go and check out her website if you want to learn more, if we didn't cover all the topics that you guys would have wanted to check out. And those are all the questions. Thanks again, Jill.
Awesome. Thank you, Andre.
Thank you.
So we always say in the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.